Okay, we will call to order the Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, 5:30 PM. The clock is slow. Um, uh, Workshop, we're going to start the workshop off with a walkthrough of the City Hall building. I believe, Tom, you are going to lead us. Correct?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and good members of the council. We will start off with a walkthrough of the building as we discussed last month. Mike Anglin is here with Widseth, and we will do a tour of the building and highlight some of the components of the exterior improvements that we've been discussing. And then we'll come back and Mike has some information as a follow-up to our last council discussion, and we will continue the meeting from there.
Okay. All yours, sir.
Okay. I don't have a lot to add. It was just really beneficial, great idea last meeting to do a walk around and see everything that we had identified with the exterior. One of the two questions though that you had asked, one was when I had mentioned the Sourcewell route in terms of a project delivery, the Gordian method, Joe, you had asked the percentage, and that's 7.5%. Is the percentage that the Gordian Sourcewell is. Again, if you were to proceed with this type of a project delivery system, there's a gentleman that would be more than happy to do a presentation or answer any questions that you may have regarding that. Another question that you had was regarding the return on investment. And so one of the items was windows in particular. And so with the new windows, essentially it's about 40% of your building envelope. And so that's the amount of area that we're talking about in terms of having a better energy efficiency. So really with the windows themselves, we've got some air leaking going on. So it's really addressing that, making sure that the building is tight. And then again, the R value would probably, the U value is really what Windows reference, but so it would double approximately the performance of the windows. I think the payback on this, I believe you had mentioned an example of 2 years in something that you would experience. It would not be a 2-year return on the investment. It would be a much farther out, drawn out process. So typically with Windows, it isn't an immediate ROI or something that people typically do that. It's similar to the roof, essentially. Your building envelope just needs to be maintained and make sure that it's watertight. And I would say that the windows would be falling into the same category as that. Outside of that, yeah, just doing the walk around outside and those two questions specifically that you had asked from me last time. But if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I don't.
Okay,
This-
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
What are we looking at for our next step then?
Yes, thank you, Mary Ryan. I think the question for the council is if you have any immediate feedback or information, feedback really that you want to share. We can certainly bring this back to the council at a future meeting. That's up to you as far as process and timeline. So certainly would appreciate something. If you'd like to move on to the next item, we can do that and we'll circle back on this. Or if you have anything based on today for staff to consider or for Mike to help us move forward with, we're certainly happy to hear that as well. So I just want to give a moment to get your thoughts if you have any.
Anybody?
I just think that, if we look at these architectural, I think those things need to be done as soon as we can. And the structural.
One thing I was just hoping, which I'd be interested in hearing, is if it really would work, the idea of putting heat under the concrete there. And it wouldn't have to be all the way down, have it in a certain area, what they would normally do. And if it's electric, it might be a lot easier to operate, even though it might be more expensive for operating. But we're only talking what I use, and mine's just household, it's nothing commercial. But it does take care of that ice buildup. I was getting backup on the steel roof that I had too, and there would be some leaks because of that when it backs up. But that took care of all of that and kept it flowing, kept it coming down. Yeah.
Well, I think the roof is a no-brainer. We
Yeah.
have to do that. And then I like the idea of extending that roof over to get rid of that. The problem you have, I think, once we tear into this wall, I think we might be unpleasantly surprised. Tom, you and I have talked about that numerous times. And it's one of those things that you don't want to do, but you got to do. And it's probably not good. So. But,
I don't know what's in today's dollars, but Mark, your idea of heating the sidewalk for the trees, we did look into that a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's about 2010, $9,000.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that would include like taking out the masonry and the concrete and embedding it.
That would just be the heat.
Or is it just for the, for the boilers? Yeah, so was that like an gas fired boiler?
I want to say it was electric.
Oh, electric? Oh, but it made hot water?
Yeah.
However, it's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I was, and maybe this won't work, but I was thinking just the electric wires, literally just in the embedded in the concrete.
Doesn't work as well anymore.
Yeah. And maybe it wouldn't be good enough for that.
No.
Okay,
The problem, yeah, that, I mean, that could be a interesting conundrum in its own right, especially down the road, because then if you get something broken, the only way to fix it is to tear it up and redo it. But anyway, Joe. do you have any-
I don't have any comment.
If we already had an inline heat, in-floor heat boiler system, and you were just gonna extend the lines out, say a couple pads,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that
Well,
wouldn't be a
having-
big deal, but because we don't have any of that, because it's everything here is forced air. So,
And having a boiler has its own problems.
well, it's,
Running a boiler is not fun.
Just leave it out and put a steel grate across the whole thing. That's another option.
Yeah,
No, seriously,
Right,
it
uh-huh.
drains out and have it drain below it. You see that in a lot of commercial places.
right.
Grandview has that in a few places
Mhm.
and that works very well and a lot cheaper.
it doesn't have to be a steel grate year round. We got steel grates in the winter. So
Right.
the snow and ice can get pushed out real quickly, and then we replace them with more of a mesh look so that ladies that are wearing heels and stuff, like at weddings and that, can't get stuck or go through. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
but anyway, okay.
Well, staff will continue to work on this with Mike and
Yeah.
we'll just keep the conversation going with the council and see what we can do for some solutions and
Is there any way we can just go ahead with the police department and move I mean, it's
the
not,
thermostat, I would think so.
I would think we'd be able to just go ahead and move that. I mean, that's kind of
Its own
ridiculous.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Put the thermostat out where,
Actually, I've already done,
okay,
so the one outside. The office.
okay. So why don't we? So if we could do, I think that would make sense for the guys. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that would be good.
Probably be very helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you being here.
thank you for the info. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Tonight I have so the next item on our agenda is to continue discussions on the 2024 budget and levy. I have a very brief presentation for you just to orient the council in the materials that were included in your packet. But my hope is that we will provide as much time for the council as you're comfortable with the goal of giving directions so that we can set a preliminary levy at our regular meeting tonight. So the one goal we have tonight is hopefully to get to a consensus of where the council would like to set the 2023 pay 2024 preliminary levy. We do technically have until September 30th to do this. But certainly it's most efficient to do it during our regular meeting. Is usually most of the time when we do that. As a reminder, our final levy can be lowered, but cannot be raised from the preliminary levy. So this is the time where we set it to hopefully give us some room to work through final details for a variety of budget things and then be able to come up with the final numbers. Just a quick packet overview. So the first item you have is a memo from me just regarding the updated budget information following the August budget workshop. So I've included information on wages, benefits, and staffing and all components of our budget related to that, some other budget items, equipment requests, other funding, Camp Lincoln Road project, etc. It also includes a placeholder for a potential bond as the city council continues discussions on potential land acquisition. I wanted to include a placeholder for that. I will just mention now, I think it's probably the best time to do that. I did discuss this briefly with our financial advisors, and they said that they can work with our existing debt service schedules to set the amortization schedule for a new bond issuance to help minimize the initial impact for the bond. So which means that the $150,000, I wanted to be conservative and at least allow space for this conversation. I think could be more realistic at 100,000 to give us some room to still then consider some different financing options as we've been discussing. But I have to put something on the preliminary levy for the county for a potential bond issuance if we want to continue on with that option. We don't have to utilize it by December. We can take it off, but I can't put it back on if I don't have it in September. So that number can be worked a little bit to maybe make the council a little more comfortable if that was higher than what you'd like to see. Also, the CPI index, I just have the updated numbers for August at 3.4%. And the levy history, I like to provide that in most of the materials that come through, just so you have that information. Just have a copy of the resolution that will be approved by the council at the regular meeting, so you can see the layout and what it looks like. It is reflective of the 18.87 increase with all of the budget items included at this point. That can be easily adjusted, and I can get final numbers pretty quickly before the regular meeting. The budget summary citywide, you're familiar with what this looks like. It outlines all of the departments and funds in a very high level summarized way. The new budget expenditure items and summary by category. So the new budget items worksheet you're familiar with. We've been working off of that for the last couple of months. And then I did summarize it in a slightly different way by category, thinking about wages, benefits, and staffing. And then the other budget requests, capital requests, other projects and things like that. So if that's helpful as you need to go through some of the details, we can do that. And the last thing I wanted to just touch on really quickly is the tax impact model. We haven't talked about this very much this budget season thus far. What is included in your packet is the 18.87 levy increase based on including all of the budgeted items. But I just wanted to walk the council and for the public's benefit as well. I thought it would be helpful. So on the screen is a summary of just the first couple of classifications from your worksheet. So we have residential homestead properties and a commercial and industrial property classifications. On the left-hand side is scenario A, and what that refers to is the current levy and tax capacity, so the property valuations for the city. And then scenario B on the right side would reflect whatever proposed tax levy you're looking at incorporating, and then what the valuations will be, how they will be incorporated into 2024. So from the county's information that they gave us in April at the Board of Appeal, we will anticipate to see just under a 10% increase in our valuations. So that's that blue number, 9.93% from 2023 to 2024. And then right under that, you'll see the 18.87% levy increase. So for a little more context, let's look at a $200,000 valued residential home. At an average of a 10% increase across the city, applied a 10% increase in the value for 2024. So you can see that the tax impact or increase would be $98 off of that 18.87% levy increase. Now, the median average priced home in Nisswa is a little bit higher. I think it's actually even higher than $400,000 to $440,000, but we're going to use this as an example. So $400,000 valued home, increasing by that 10% again to $440,000 would see an increase in $197 in their tax due at that 18.87%. One more frame of reference I provided, I didn't have it in your packet. I can get you a copy if you'd like, but it's a flat levy increase compared to the valuation. So if we basically increase the levy 10% roughly to match the 10% property valuation, here are our numbers at $200,000 to $220,000 in valuation. You're going to see a tax impact of $56 compared to $98 at that 10% levy increase. And the same for the $400,000 value home to 440,000, the tax impact is 106 as opposed to the 197, I believe it was. So there's still an increase in that, assuming that everyone's valuation is going up some extent. So using the average of the 10% as a baseline frame of reference. Wanted to provide you with a little bit of information. With that, I have more information ready depending on council discussion, but I think it's important to leave time for you to discuss. And so I will turn it back over to Mayor Ryan, and I am happy to answer questions as needed. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's dig in.
I'll start if you want.
Okay.
My overall look at everything and assessing everything, looking at this, I know, you know, we've got a lot of residents that are on fixed income, and the levy increases that we've done over the past few years, I mean, it's hurting people. I said in the beginning that I'd want to stay at a 5% levy. But looking at everything, I'd still like to stay at that, but realistically not. If it were me, the things I would include in the levy would be the first 4 points under wages, benefits, and staffing, and that's at a 3.8%. Then I would add the Camp Lincoln Road parcels in the new bond placeholder. But I mean, even with that, that's at a 12.68% if I'm correct. But the Camp Lincoln and the bond, those aren't in perpetuity. The only ones that would be the 3.8% add on to the budget increase. So that's where I stand. I don't think at this time we can, yeah, I know we've talked about new employees, but I don't think we can. I mean, that would add another, I mean, even 5 and 6, that adds another 6.24% onto the levy. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's me. Were my numbers correct? 12.68 approximately with those that I put in there?
I'm just trying to follow along mental math. I think you're right in the ballpark. So that seems correct.
Mark?
Yeah, if we aren't talking about acquisition of any type of property for a bond issuance, then we're looking at, I believe it was 12 something. And if we, for me, I was thinking if we are going to go ahead and get some bond issuance for purchasing property, that is a one-time, well, it's not a one-time. You have to be smart and be able to pay it back, and you have a schedule on that. And I still am interested in what if we were to, if taking any of our general fund at all how it would impact our bonding. Is there anything that we can use to help bring down that amount of levy that it would impact? But of course, we'd have to be very careful and to set up a repayment plan with just without the interest from the banks, you know, but we'd have to do that every year, just as though it was a regular bond. But anyway, from 12%, if we were not to hire the two new employees, that would take it down to about 6%. And then if we went ahead and got the land, then that would raise it to whether it be 4 or 6%. And if we could ever use some of our general fund, that could probably bring it down further. I know and originally want to keep it below 10%. I'm all for that if we can. But if it's necessary, we will have to just go up higher. And I don't want to pay more taxes either. So I guess I agree with Mark as well as far as trying to hire new employees. Both at this point might be difficult considering what we want to try to accomplish.
Okay, Joe.
Well, I guess there's many things that I think about looking at something like this. You know, it's kind of have your cake and eat it too in some aspects, you know. we're adding other projects to the city, you know, a new parcel of land for a new park, things like that. Look at the call volumes, the run volumes of both the police department and the fire department. The area is more populated. More people here, the seasonal people are here more longer. Those volumes are going up in the last, since COVID, that stuff's gone up and it just hasn't gone away. And so to say that we can still keep operating with the same people that we have isn't realistic either to provide the same service that we want to provide. And so town just has more people in it, busier. I don't know. I think, you know, also in looking at this is all new stuff that we want to do and add, but also too, I guess I'd like to see the council maybe set some time aside to look at currently what we have, how we're doing stuff, how our processes are, and see if there's existing areas, items, places that we can currently cut, you know, in how we might be operating or doing something currently that we can save money on what we're doing, you know, because this is always looking ahead. But I don't know, I think we need to stop and evaluate on currently what we're doing, if that makes sense too. Take a little snapshot of what's going on and see if there's current areas that we can save some money. Because what is laid out for us, you know, especially like, let's take the police department. I don't know, the call volume is not going down across, you know, across the city. So what are we going to do? You know, we want the officers out on the street. And to do that, we need some support in the office for them. Yeah, I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else does, but you know, Public Works, same thing. We're adding more stuff for them to do and take care of. You know, their look at how it's operating, what we can do, you know, any areas that we can make improvements. But yeah, I guess I'm not sure what you cut and still have the same services to the community.
Well, I think when it comes to the employee for the police department, weren't we looking at, there were some monies that the city received from the state, correct?
Yes.
And
Correct.
so, I mean, if it comes down to it, yes, I think we need someone there trying to figure out how to do that. Is there, I know we discussed it, them coming in maybe the middle of the year and the money from the state that would cover that, correct? But then you'd have it, well, then you'd add 3% and that would be just kicked down the road. I mean, that's one avenue that we can look at too.
If you look at that, I'll throw my 2 cents in. If we were to take that $44,000, that roughly was what the police department's going to get, and put that towards that, to make up the difference is roughly $33,000, and that brings them to the dollar amount that we're anticipating that position will cost. So, but that 44,000, if you use that, will have to then be absorbed in the next levy.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're already starting out the 2025 budget year, or discussing 2025 budget with cost of living and that on top of it. So that's your starting point. So you know you're going to have those expenses. But the problem with the police department's record keeping and stuff is that it's only getting more complicated, and it's getting longer, and it gets more and more. And the officers are more than capable of doing it. That's not what we hired them to do. And requests from prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys, the courts, and everything continues to go, and it gets more and more. And with new technologies and stuff, like we've recently purchased them, yes, that makes it simpler, but at the same time, somebody has to oversee that whole process. And when you have a department the size of ours, there isn't one person generally that's there all the time to oversee it Monday through Friday, you know, okay. An office coordinator is very important to have. The chief has been asking for one for a number of years. It's the only request he has this year. And I think that if we were to look at incorporating that 44,000 or the portion of that fund that he's getting for that, and either start them later on in the year, like March, okay, something along those lines, or if we can work it into the budget for the other 33 or whatever that end dollar amount ends up being, depends on who you hire and where they'll be starting. So I think that's one that has to happen. In reference to the park, $70,000 is what we're budgeting, because the other is covered by the COVID money. What is going to be the cost, the actual cost of a vault toilet with a class 5 driveway and a class 5 parking area? We don't have to pave it, doesn't have to be, you know, that. I mean, that would be ultimately would be easier to maintain and plow a paved parking lot. But in the idea of saving money, I also think that the city needs to look at reaching out to people in the area. That whole park came about because the people in that area did not want to see that area developed, and the city agreed with them. And so we took the tack that we did, and the county gave us the land with some stipulations. There's ways to develop that area. There's ways to do that haven't been, in my opinion, fully looked at and looked at aggressively. And I think that that's something that needs to be done. So I would, you know, if we took out that, and if we were to waylay the public works employee, that's 6% decrease right there. That brings us down to 12.87. And looking at the bond, a placeholder for the bond, you know, there's another 3%. That brings us down to 9.87 as a place to start. So I could live with a 9.87, if you want to call it 10% preliminary levy, but we're going to have to, we're making a significant investment in employees. And we can't do everything. And that's just, you know, that we all know that. So I could say, I could see putting a preliminary levy out there of, you know, 9.87, or if you just want to call it 10% for simplicity's sake. But I would like to see, I would be all for sitting down and cutting it down from there to where we can go. And if we do move forward with land purchases and stuff, are there other ways that we can do it? Is there ways that we can put that off a little bit longer and maybe work it into the 25 budget more so than the 24? But is there, you know, what can we do with that? We do have reserve funds. I don't like using them any more than anybody else does. But if we can cut that number down, the city administrator said that was a very conservative number that she put in there. So it probably is not going to be that, but what that number actually is, but that's a whole nother discussion that the council has to have to see where we end up falling. So, but I would pull that out for now. And like I say, that puts us at a little under 10%. And then there's still other things in the budgets that we might be able to wrangle. And to Joe's point, you know, look and see if we really need them. Let's pull them. But the other thing that position with the police department's going to do is that position will also work with the fire department to help with some of their record keeping stuff, record keeping tasks and stuff, so that when they get it organized and figure out how they want to do that, that frees them up for not having to come in on other days and stuff and do that. And it would probably make for a much more efficient record keeping system and a much more efficient overall operation for them as well, which would really help organize them. And I'm sure they won't argue not having to do paperwork. So. And
So-
I also know that once that position starts, there's been talk about having them used in other places within City Hall. I'm
Not yet.
pretty much certain that once that person starts operating in the police department, there's going to be a lot more being done than anyone realizes. And there's gonna be a lot of stuff being able to taken off the officers' plates that they can get back out there on the road, which is where we want them. So that's where I'm at. I'm at saying we could probably set a 9.5% or 10% preliminary levy and then work it from there.
So, Mr. Mayor, what I'm looking at is under the other budget items, you're looking at taking the Camp Lincoln Road parcel and the new bond placement off, correct?
Yeah.
And we know that the Camp Lincoln, the bathroom has to be in by the end of 2024. So if we take that off the table, can we take that amount out of the unallocated?
Well, the amount, so in theory, the amount that we have left in our ARPA funding dollars will cover the cost of the bathroom. The 70,000 is the cost for the road and the parking lot.
Right.
That was paved, right?
I don't believe it is, actually, but it was an
70,000.
estimate that was given a while back. So we don't, we certainly want to maybe look at that, but I don't know that it's really gonna.
Will the county sit with us just having a bathroom out there and no way to get to it? That's the big question.
What really happens if it doesn't get done? I
They-
mean, what's the county going to do?
County
Say-
gets the land back.
Okay, and then what happens? What does the county do with it?
They'll auction it
Potentially
off.
auction it for public sale.
All right, and has anybody actually talked to the county and said, hey, will you give us
Yes.
more time?
No, we haven't yet because we are waiting for our archaeological study results to come in to make sure that that's not a hurdle we have to address as
Right.
well, because that would be potentially a significant, time delay that we want to make sure. So once that comes in sometime this fall, we would then talk with them and either it's a significant issue like that with an archaeological impact, or there's other reasons that we might potentially request an extension. I'm sure that they would hear that out as needed, but
And I relayed that information to our county commissioner, Mr. Lubke. I ran into him the other day and he said, when you get that information back, please let him know.
Okay.
And he would be happy to come in and sit down and see what he could do.
I see,
That's
gotcha.
all.
Yeah, we just hadn't formally gone to the county
No,
board, so
we
that's
haven't
why
gone to the county
that was my
board or anything
why.
like that, but
Right.
it's so.
Because I think we were waiting for some of these more things to come to see what all would happen
And the-
if we
and
had
that-
to push out.
So.
Yeah.
But I also think that if a concentrated effort was made, that we could probably raise funds from private sources to try and get that done.
Right, and that's what
We
this,
are the ones that they approached us and we're the ones that took the ball and ran with it and preserved that area for those people. For the community as well as, but mainly for those folks down there. So I have talked to a few of them on and off and they're not close to the idea, but if there's nothing formal that's been done or anything.
well, I know that
That would have to be, the council would have to make a decision that we want to approach that way before any of us go and start talking privately on behalf of the city, so.
well, I know the Lake Hubert Association was reached out to by Amber to attend the open house on to show what was there. Some showed up. Many didn't. And since then, there hasn't been boo, from what I understand, from anybody with the Lake Hubert Association. So, and the other thing too is I know that we're hoping that we can do some kind of private fundraising for all of the parks in there. But I think, yes, with what you're saying, they have been reached. I think we're just gonna have to do it again. Another reach out and just let them know, we're looking at if we don't get funds to do this, that
But
we'll have to relinquish.
But for the point of our discussion here, we're trying to figure out where are we going to go with our preliminary levy.
Right, so
So
I'm with you at 10. I won't go higher than 10. I'm at 10.
So
So if you cut out 4 and 5, that brings us to 10.
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Yeah, on other budget items. Is the math correct on that?
Good.
Oh, probably on the other page if I flip it over, Camp Lincoln. The 70 and the 150,
If you cut out
225.
if you cut out the public works employee, you cut out the bond placeholder and you cut out the Camp Lincoln parcels, that brings us down to just a little under 10%.
And that's without any type of bonding issue.
So let's talk about the public works employee though. That employee is, the intent of that is to come in and learn, correct?
Well, that
Our
would-
system,
That would ultimately be nice, yeah.
right, so we don't have this big lapse or gap in knowledge on how the sewer treatment system works in the city. So I guess I'm not sure that would be a wise area to cut. There's a lot of knowledge there that needs to be passed on. We know that that person will be retiring. And I don't think it would be wise not to have a replacement in place before they retire to train with all the details that goes along with something like that.
Correct. But where do we cut then? Or do we not cut? That's the question. Do we bring it down to 10 or hopefully under 10%? What else do we leave out then? What?
That's my question. What are we currently doing? What do we currently have where we can cut some money,
Well,
you know, within
I'm all
within
ears.
our,
I'm all ears. Right now with what's being requested, items on, if you look at the memo sheet, the lead sheet, items 1 through 5 or 1 through 4 are not touchable.
And that's 3.8%.
That's 3.8%.
1.32 would be have to added to the police department employee request. Because half of that, 44,000 comes out of the 77,000, leaves us 33, it's approximately 1.32. Compensation study, it's a 0.8.
Well, and if you add the employment, the public works employee, there's another 3%.
Correct.
is the
over
compensation
3%.
study for 20,000 necessary?
Yes.
But it's, you know, the employee, the public works employee could start later on. Say like in June, for at least for the 2024. And that would bring it down to about 1.5, a little bit more.
And that's assuming that our other employee is going to retire this year, but we don't know when he's going to retire. We have no idea.
But we know it's coming.
Well, eventually, yeah, but you know, there hasn't been anything said. But the bond placeholder, Camp Lincoln parcel, then all we have left to go through are equipment requests for and capital improvement plan. And am I correct in are any of the items on the budget expenditure new items list, are those figured into the budget?
They are, yes.
Okay. So we could eliminate the 4,000 for marketing for city parks. Planning and zoning, that is for the software, or what was that for again?
That's for a variety of different
Great.
capital improvement plan items,
Okay.
ordinance revisions,
Okay,
downtown master plan, things like that.
okay, we know we're gonna be needing to do those.
But we pushed the downtown master plan off, correct? That's what we had voted on last time.
We did in October, I guess pending this conversation, staff would be bringing idea to discuss the timing of that, to align that with some of the different projects with the road bond coming up and some things like that to ensure we have good information across the board for all departments as we work on other projects. So staff would like to engage in that conversation. So we have that incorporated in planning and zoning's capital improvement plan, overall their 10-year plan. But looking to do that potentially next year.
The plow truck was already ordered, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we could eliminate the snow blower for the mini loader, but I don't know if that old one will still continue to work. We could eliminate the vehicle lift, capital improvement plan from 23 budget, there's 22,000, that's almost
So that's the increase in that 10-year average to
Exactly.
put away. So it's not each individual item, but
Correct.
it's to account for the
and we put
equipment
that,
requests.
we've cut that out in the past. And it's come back to bite us a few times because we didn't have money in there when we had
Sure.
surprise projects come up. And I'll just remind the council that you are gonna have surprise projects come up by the county, by the state. They will not necessarily let you know ahead of time. And all of a sudden, boom. Now we have a pretty good relationship with them, but things do come up. So
And
that's why we've been
that's a
trying.
separate line item that is completely different from the capital improvement plan.
Okay, but. You
So
know,
there's money set aside for that purpose.
and you still haven't made up. So if you add up all the other stuff you're gonna get rid of, what number do you come up with? I'm sorry, I mean, there's only X amount of money in the pot. And I believe we've all heard it. We've all sat up here and listened to taxpayers tell us they are tired of seeing their taxes go up in the large increments that they've been going up. And we've hit them with 23% in the last 2 years. So I'll leave it there. So I guess the question that comes back to, what do we do? What don't we do? And what do we cut out? What don't we cut out? And what is a preliminary levy our council comfortable with?
And Mayor Ryan, if I could offer just as much as the conversation's helpful to talk about the specific items, so that's important to do. Tonight certainly is, I think, where that level of comfort is for the council. At what number to say this is a good number to set, and then we can continue to work on these items and try to figure out how we can prioritize them for you, or figure out a way to vet those items. At the end of the day, it might just mean that we go through each one and vote yes or no and see where the consensus is. But certainly for tonight, I think that just the question is what level of comfort are you for the preliminary levy? The mayor and Councilmember Fraley said 10%. You said 12 and a half, I'm gonna round.
Yes, 12 and a half.
Councilmember Hall, I'm not sure if you have a number, or it's just kind of where's the consensus for the group at this point?
So what number would you be comfortable with, Joe, for preliminary?
I guess I haven't done the math, but I would cut item 4 and 5 out. The bond placeholder and the Camp Lincoln, I'd cut both of those. For sure. I don't know what that does to the number.
That's 9% right there.
So you're about 10
Right.
roughly. Right.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, do we want to make a motion on what we want to, or, well,
Well, we're at a workshop, so
at a workshop.
10, if I hear, I
Yeah.
got 10 from 3 individuals. I think Councilmember Utzinger would like to see it a little bit higher for some more room to work. That's up to the council. You can decide if you would like to see the 12 and a half or at 10.
At this point, I was thinking that's the smart move because we can always go lower, but we can't go higher.
Right.
So I'm thinking that 12.5, I would make a motion that,
Well, we can't, we're at a workshop.
oh,
Right.
Okay.
So I think it's just a matter of the council as a whole. You can, I think we're either at 10 or 12 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I'm,
You said what we're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with 5%.
well, 10% for preliminary.
Right.
That's where I'm at. Joe seems, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Um.
I will work to just to get that set up for the meeting at 7 o'clock,
Okay,
if council agrees.
so anything else? Okay. Well, I was entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop and we will re-adjourn at 7.
I so move.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.